successful edition of Fincon 2020, International Conference on Advances in Financial Markets and Services, conducted by the Research and PG Department of Commerce, St. Thomas College Autonomous, Thrissur. We'll begin the session with a silent prayer. Thank you. I invite Dr. Desan Tattal, Assistant Professor, Research Department of Commerce, to welcome the gathering.
Good morning, one and all. Most respected Dr. Joju Chandran sir, Chair of the session, Dr. Biju T, Resource Person of this session, Dr. Biju Janyam, Head of the Department of Commerce. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm good morning to one and all. Today we are on the second day of Fincon 2022. I hope this is my privilege to welcome Dr. Biju Chandran, Professor and Head of the Department, Business and Management, Christ Deemed University, and he secured his PhD in Management from Bharatiyar University. He has been awarded with the Faculty Excellence Award 2007. He is an associate member of Institute of Management Consultants of India, Chennai chapter. He has done several consultancy projects, including setting up of a 100-bedded multidisciplinary hospital in Central Kerala. Several paper presentations and publications has in his credit. On behalf of the Department of Commerce, St. Thomas College Autonomous, Thrissur, I extend a vote the short season of the day of this session. Professor Vijay is working Associate Professor, Department of Commerce, University of Kerala. He was awarded his PhD in Commerce from University of Kerala. He has added many features to his career. He was experienced from Vijayam College, Chavara, Kerala State Poverty Eradication Mission, Government College, Punithura, Kerala State Higher Education Council, MSM Government College, Calcutta. He has to credit many articles and paper publications. I have many to his St. Thomas College Autonomous. I so and I wish you a wonderful session, and I extend a wholehearted welcome to Dr. Biju Janyam for his wonderful leadership and guidance to this international seminar. I welcome Professor Jilna John, who has proposed a vote of thanks to this session. And I also welcome all of you gathered here online mode. And once again, welcome you all. Have a blessed day. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All the participants are requested to switch on their videos for our technical team to take a screenshot of the proceedings for documentation purpose.
Biju sir, please unmute your video.
It's unmuted, sir.
Okay, okay, okay.
Thank you all. We are honored to have Dr. Biju T, Associate Professor, Department of Commerce, University of Kerala, as a resource person for the day, who would be handling the second technical session of Fincon 2022 on the topic The Research Communique, the same chaired by Dr. Joji Chandran, Professor and Head of the Department of Commerce, Christ University. We are honored to have you, sir, in our platform. Over to the session.
Uh, Thank you, Pallavi. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, so very good morning to one and all present here for the technical session of the International Virtual Conference on Advances in Financial Markets and Services, organized by Research and Postgraduate Department of Commerce, St. Thomas Autonomous College, Thrissur. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this virtual conference. As you all know, the banking and finance industry nowadays plays a crucial role in shaping a country's economic growth. Here, the research has become an integral part of the organization. You take any organization, nowadays the research has become an integral part. So we know that every operation at a banking organization or at any organization, be it a marketing strategy or an internal audit or whatever it may be, it's analyzed by the researchers and ensure that proper data is available to make proper decisions. If an organization conducts a research study, if well organized, can actually help the organization to understand their customers, their needs, and how their performances are changing. That helps helps the management, in fact, in improving their decision making and providing them with a strong foundation for management practices. So there is no doubt that research will always play an important role in the growth of any industry. So not only that, it also opens the potential investment doors for rapidly growing organizations worldwide. So research benefits not only organization, but also the industry as a whole. So some of the most common areas research worldwide in the banking and financial industry are in the field of insurance, pensions, personal loans, property, credit cards, even mortgages, like that. So in research, if any kind of formal announcement or a report or a statement is published, we call that as a research communique, especially if someone in authority issues that particular document. So today, I would like to introduce our resource person, Dr. Biju T, Associate Professor, Department of Commerce, University of Kerala, for this technical session and to talk about the topic research communique. Dr. Biju T has done his undergraduate and post-graduation, both commerce and education. And he has done his MPhil and PhD, both in commerce, MPhil and PhD in commerce, from University of Kerala. Dr. Biju has already produced 15 PhDs and has got more than 10 international peer-reviewed publications and 30 national publications. He has in his credit one edited book, received research project worth 10 lakhs from University of Kerala and fund. Dr. Biju received the Best District Coordinator Award from Kudumbasri, Kerala State Poverty Eradication Mission in the year 2015. He is also a resource person in various organizations like State Council for Education, Research and Training, KILA, Kerala Institute of Local Administration, State Institute of Rural Development and Employment, and career guide. No accolades on his name. But Biju to continue with his talk today. So I hand over the session to Dr. Biju. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Joji Chandran, for your nice introduction. And Sir has already stated the relevance of research in the field of finance, in the field of management, in the field of marketing. And this research is actually very much important for the industry as well as for the entire society, because we are talking about the social science research. We are talking about the social science research. And as we know, the social science research is something related with the problems or issues faced by the humanity or the society. And we are always trying to find solutions or find answers to some research questions. And after the research process or after finding out the solutions or answers to the questions, we need to communicate it authentically or with authority to the concerned parties. In that respect, our today's discussion is vital, I think. So once again, a very warm good morning to all of you. At this outset, I would like to express my gratitude to the principal of St. Thomas College, Reverend Dr. Martin K., my friend Dr. Biju John M., the Dean and Head of the Department of Research Department of Commerce, Professor Sindhu George, the Organizing Secretary, and all other faculty members of the Department of Commerce, St. Thomas College, for giving me an opportunity to be part of this wonderful program. So as I said, today we are going to discuss about a very important stage in the research process, which is the research communication. So every research process, as Joji Chandran sir said, the search process is inevitable in the business arena or in the society, we have to say like that. So every search process ends with a finding that we need to communicate. So the search process ends with communication, we have to say like that. Without communicating the process and the results of an inquiry, that inquiry process is of no use, isn't it? So in social science research, we the human beings are searching again and again into some problems for finding adequate solutions to resolve the issues, or we are attempting to find the answers to some research questions. So this search process consists of various steps or stages in the research process. I think you know all these steps, starting from the identification of the research problem and an exploration through literature review, and we are finding the research gap, and we state the research problem, or we define the research problem as it is, and we fix the objectives of the study. After that, we have to state the research hypothesis, plan about the research design, so constituting the research design, and that sub-plan regarding the sampling. And after that, you have to go for data collection, then processing of data, analysis of data. Then you have to test your hypothesis and make your generalizations or interpretations. then you need to communicate it to the interested persons. So the search process through all these stages ends with finding a solution or finding an answer, as I said. So the we need to communicate this to the research audience. Who are the research audience? The research audience may differ in accordance with the nature and type of your research study. So today, we just try to discuss something about this research communication or communicating the research output into or to the interested parties. So I think the modus operandi will be like this in today's presentation. First question is regarding why we are communicating, and second thing is what we have to communicate, and how we need to communicate the research. These are the main points of discussion today, and the discussion will cover certain fundamental aspects because I came to know from your professor and head and dean of faculty of commerce that most of the participants are students of postgraduate programs and all. So I think we have to cover some fundamental aspects like the meaning and functions of research report and types of research report. There are different types of research report. Mainly, we will cover two types. They are the thesis, the technical report, as well as the research article. Because Dr. Biju John taught me regarding the topic, he suggested that's something we need to discuss on the research article also. Hence, we will discuss the basic two types of reports. One is regarding the thesis, and the other one is regarding the research article. We will also discuss something about the stages of reporting or communicating the research, the contents of a research report, and factors to be considered while drafting the report also, if time permits. So we have to proceed into the first part, the why aspect and the what aspect of the research report or research communication. Okay, as I mentioned, the reporting is the final and very important step in every research activity or a research process. At this stage, the researcher is actually compiles and presents the research experience to others. The research report, as you know, is the ultimate output of your research process. So only at the report drafting stage, the researcher assembles the findings of the study. He draws conclusions and evaluates his own findings. So as an end process of the research activity, the reporting or the communication of the output is a highly skilled work. This kind of a communication is a highly skilled work which is both interesting as well as challenging. The research communication is actually a technical activity. Why it is called a technical activity? That is why I told you that it demands more skill, and it is a challenging activity. It demands considerable thought. Demands considerable thought, effort, patience, skill, penetration, and overall approach to the problem is also essential. While drafting the report, you have to bear in mind an overall approach about the problem, and you have to know about the data analysis as well as firm control over language, and greater objectivity should be maintained while reporting your results or communicating your results to somebody. So considerable amount of planning and preparation is also necessary for organizing and drafting the report. So what a research report is? That is our first question. A research report is a formal statement of the research process and its results. What we have already done and what we have obtained, or what results we have obtained, that we need to report. So it is a formal statement of the research process and its results. And this report gives a narration of the problem studied, the methods used, the findings, the conclusions, and all. Everything is included in this report. So it is a description or mode of communication of the entire research activity. So through this report only, you are communicating the entire research activity with its results to the interested persons. Then Then comes the why aspect. Why we are preparing the report? What is the need of preparing this report? The very purpose of research report is to communicate to the interested persons both the methodology and the results of the study. You have to communicate the methodology as well as the result of the study in such a way as to enable the audience to understand your research process. And in that way, they will be able to determine the validity of the conclusions posed by you. So you have to stage the entire process in such a manner to enable the research consumer to understand the search process and to determine the validity of your conclusions. So before proceeding to the how aspect, just see the functions of a report. The report performs various functions. So this also is an answer to the why part, or the why aspect. So the report serves as a means for presenting the problem study, the methods and techniques used for collecting and analyzing things, the conclusion. It is a means of communication. It's the means of communication. And it serves as a basic reference material for future use in developing the research proposal in the same or related area. Maybe with you, several postgraduate students who are interested to do research in future, maybe there. So in your research department, you may have the copies of the research report or the thesis. That is already communicated by the researchers who have completed their research. And that piece of the research output acts as a reference material for your future research activity. So it acts as a reference material for future use. And a report serves as a means for judging the quality of the completed research project. You know that when you submit the thesis to the university will send this particular report to the adjudicators. And the adjudicators, they evaluate the thesis and they come to a conclusion that this researcher is able or eligible for getting the degree of PhD, or he's a good researcher. How that thing is getting evaluated, it is only through the research report. So a report serves as a means for judging the quality of the completed research project. And it is a means for evaluating the researcher's ability and competence to do research. Researcher's ability as well as competence to do research. And it provides a factual base for formulating the research policies and strategies relating to the subject matter studied. As our chair has rightly pointed out that in the case of marketing, or in the case of financing, in the case of banking, insurance, we undertake several types of research. And the research output in each and every respect will act as a basic reference material for the managers or the executives or the government for making policies and all. So it acts as a factual base for formulating policies and strategies relating to the subject matter study. And it provides systematic knowledge on the problems and the issues analyzed. That's about the various functions performed by the research report. See, regarding the functions itself, the American Marketing Society states the purpose of this communication or this research report as to convey to the interested persons the whole results of the study in sufficient details and so arranged as to enable each reader to comprehend the data and so determine for himself the validity of conclusions. This thing we have elaborated just now, to convey to the interested person. The very purpose is to communicate to the interested persons the whole results of the study, what you have find out from the study, with the sufficient details. You have to give the factual data along with that. That needs to be arranged in such a manner to enable the reader to comprehend the data so as to determine himself for the validity of conclusions. So this is about the introductory part. And regarding the communication, when the process of inquiry or the research is over and the results is readily with you, then you have to make it available to the public or to the research consumers or to the audience. The audience, as I said, may be different for different types of inquiries that we will discuss later. So to communicate the research results to the interested persons, we may either present it orally or in written format. Today we are discussing more about the written format. What about the oral reports? Whether we used to report the findings of the research study orally? Sure, because our chair pointed out about the business researches and all. If it is a case of marketing research, the executives or the officers or the decision-making authorities are not interested in going through the entire details of the report. So they will ask you to present the major findings of your research inquiry. There you have to make a presentation before them. And for we people, the academic community, we need to present in the conferences. So oral reports are the ones which are meant for presenting in conferences. I think today afternoon itself, you have a paper presentation, isn't it? So you have to prepare a report accordingly to present in the conference like this. So that is to be presented in 15 to 30 minutes time. So its format, its arrangement, everything will be in that respect only. So, but the common format of reporting is the written reports, which will reach the maximum people, and it will act as a reference material for future use, as I said, and it will also act as a means for adjudicating the quality of the research work. So today we are therefore concentrating more on this kind of written reports. So we will just proceed to different types of reports, and as I said, we will concentrate only on two types. So the written reports may be of different types. See, different types of reports are the technical reports are there, popular reports are there, interim reports are there, summary reports are there, research abstract and research article, everything is there. The first type, the thesis or the technical report. This is actually a comprehensive full report of the entire research process and its outcome. You know what is thesis, isn't it? Those who are pursuing the research for obtaining the PhD degree, they have to prepare a thesis and submit it to the university. So here the audience is the academic community actually. That is the scientists of researchers discipline and other researchers from the researchers discipline or related discipline. So the thesis is a formal long report covering all aspects of the research process. It is like a description of the problem studied, the objectives of the study, the methods and techniques used, the details of the accounts of sampling, the field and other research procedures. So that is for data collection, data processing and all, then sources of data, tools of data collection, method of data processing and analysis, details of the findings, the conclusions, suggestions, everything is incorporated in this particular report. So there is also a technical appendix for methodological details, copies of measuring instruments and like this. It is so comprehensive and complete, so that the study can be replicated by others. That is why this particular thesis is meant for reference material for the future researchers. So the technical report is essentially technical in nature and scope, and it is prepared in technical language. It is arranged in a specified pattern, and it consists of several preliminary sessions or preliminary items as well as terminal items, and several headings, subheadings, paragraphs, figures. Everything will be incorporated in this particular technical report. The format, the stages of preparation, everything will be discussed later on in today's presentation. Then regarding the popular report, this type of report is designed actually for an audience like executives or administrators and other non-technical users. I said about the marketing research. The persons who are interested in knowing about the trends, the patterns, and the future market, everything is not the lay audience or the academic community. It is actually meant for the executives or officials of the organization. So here the reader is not that much concerned about the methodological details. Actually, they are interested in studying quickly the major findings and conclusions of the study. And they are interested in applying your findings and conclusions as decisions. So hence the organization of this report is different from that of a technical report. It should be clear, brief, and straightforward. So there is no need to incorporate all the methodological details and all. If you incorporate the methodological details and all, you will incorporate it only as an appendix part. So complicated statistical techniques and tables need not be used here. Instead, you can use pictorial devices that you can use extensively to make the presentation more attractive. And the format of this report is different from that of a technical report. And normally this report proceeds like this. After a brief introduction to the problem and objectives, an abstract of the findings, conclusions, and recommendations is presented. As I said, the methodological details, data analysis, and the discussion, these are all presented as a second part, as an appendix to the major body. So more headlines, underlining pictures, and graphs may be used here. There can be liberal use of margins, blank space, and the style may be more journalistic, but be precise, and it should encourage rapid reading and quick comprehension also. In the case of these, we use a technical language, but in the case of this particular thing, the popular report, we are using the journalistic language to make it more attractive. And the third type is interim report. Hope I am audible to you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the third type of report is the interim report. You know the term interim, and we are discussing about the interim dividend in our classrooms. So interim is in between. So when there is a long time lag between the data collection and presentation of results, in the case of a sponsored project, the study may lose its significance and usefulness. The sponsor may also lose interest in it. For example, if, as introduced by the chair, I got a project from the university for rupees 10 lakhs, and that project lasts for 2.5 years. So the university awarded an amount to me, and I started the working of that particular project. The final report will be prepared only after completion of the entire project study, that is only after 2.5 years. So before that, in between, I need to prepare some progress reports, and I need to submit it to the sponsor, that is to the university. So what this kind of a report is called the interim report. So the interim report is a short report which may contain either the first result of analysis or final outcome of the analysis that we have already completed. Sometimes the project may be designed in such a way that phase by phase progression is there. If we complete the phase 1, we can prepare the report of the phase 1, the completed stage, and we have to give the report of that phase. That is called an interim report. Hope it is clear to you. And the fourth type is summary report. A summary report is generally prepared for the consumption of the lay audience, that is the general public. We know that sometimes the government may appoint some inquiry commissions to inquire into certain social issues or social aspects. And the commission will submit reports in, I saw in newspapers that some of the commissions are submitting reports in 10 or 20 trunk boxes full of papers. So that is a long report. But in the very next day, we can find the summary of that report in newspapers. That kind of a report which is published in newspapers is called a summary report. That is why the audience of this particular report, the summary report, is the general public. It is meant for the lay audience. The audience is not technical users. The audience is not academic community. The audience is not executives or officials. The audience is the general public. So the preparation of this type of report is desirable for any study whose findings are of general interest. The public is interested to know about that particular inquiry regarding this COVID vaccine and all. If any company through the research process, if they came to find one particular vaccine for this particular thing, that needs to be communicated to the public because the public is interested. So this report, this summary report is a written report which is normally drafted in non-technical simple language with the liberal use of pictorial charts and all. It just contains a brief reference to the objectives of the study, the major findings of the study and their implications. So it is a short report of 2 to 3 pages. Its size is so limited because to make it suitable for a publication in daily newspapers and all. And the next one is a research abstract. Maybe the researchers know about this particular thing, research abstract. This is a short summary of the technical report. Normally the technical report, the size of the technical report ranges from 200 to 350 pages or 400 pages sometimes. But at the eve of presenting the thesis to the university, the researchers are asked to prepare a short report that may range as only 1 to 2 pages. A 2-page summary report you have to prepare. That kind of a report is called a research abstract. It is usually prepared by the doctoral students on the eve of submitting their thesis to the university for adjudication. Normally, the copies of this abstract is sent by the university along with a letter of request to the examiners to invite them to evaluate the thesis. So, this abstract contains a brief presentation of the statement of the problem, the objectives of the study, methods and techniques used, and an overview of the entire report. A brief summary of results of the study may also be added in the research abstract. That's about a research abstract. And the last type is a research article. This is actually designed for publication in professional journals. A research article may be clearly written in concise and unambiguous language. We will discuss about the points to be bear in mind while preparing the research article in the second part of our today's presentation. So a research article must be prepared in a logical order. So it must be logically organized, progressing from a statement of the problem and the purpose of the study and analysis of the evidences of conclusions and implications and all. Every professional journal may have its own specific format for reporting the research results or for preparing the research article. Of the different types we will discuss, as I said, only 2 types today, the thesis writing and the research article writing. Okay, so before that, just have a quick look on the stages in preparation of the research report. When you plan to communicate your research output to the research audience, the audience we discussed while discussing about the different types of report. For technical reporters, it is the academic community or the research community. For popular report, it is the executives or administrators. For summary report, it is the general public. Like that, audience may be different. So you have to bear in mind certain points while preparing for communicating the research output to the audience. The steps involved in the research reporting as depicted as shown in the slide may be described as 3 P's in research communique. 3 P's in research communique. They are planning, preparing, and presenting. Planning, preparing, and presenting. The first step is planning the report writing. Planning the report writing. So after the data analysis is over, the report writing cannot be started abruptly. So the research communication, the process of communication requires careful planning, because the research report is a means of communication. We have to consider some basic questions which determine the effectiveness of communication, namely who says, what, to whom, in which way, with what effect. All these questions should be bear in mind. That is why we also started our discussion with 3 basic questions: why, what, and how. So before every research communication, you have to think about all these things. Who's going to tell something? What you are going to tell? To whom you are going to communicate the things? In which way are you going to communicate? What effect you are intended to generate by this communication process? This thing you have to plan. So the planning process involves certain steps and considerations. First one, you have to think about your target audience. Who are your audience? So the first step in planning the research communication is to determine the target audience. The form and style of reporting and all other aspects depends upon the type of audience for whom the report is basically intended. So the identification of the target audience depends on who is the researcher and what are his intentions. Based on that only you can identify your target audience. The target audience may be of the academic or scientific community, the sponsors of the research, or the general public, or the executives or the administrators, like that. So after identifying your target audience, you have to think about the communication characteristics of your audience. The second step in the planning of the report writing is to consider the selected audience's communication characteristics. What is their level of knowledge and understanding? What is the gap in knowledge on subject between the reader and the writer? What kind of language you need to use? That is, what kind of language is feasible for the audience? So whether the language is scientific or technical or journalistic, that which the reader is familiar with, or what do they need to know about your study? What is likely to be the interest to them? How can they need the information to be presented in a better manner, whether it is oral or written or a combined form of presentation? If it is a written report, what will be the extent of use of tabular and pictorial presentations? So these questions determine the scope, the form, the styles of reporting and all. So the purpose of report is not to communicate with oneself, but to communicate with the target audience. Therefore, we have to identify the target audience and we have to identify the communication characteristics of the target audience. Okay, then the third thing you have to bear in mind at the stage of planning is the intended purpose of the report. The intended purpose of the report. The intended purpose may be for publication in a Scopus indexed journal, or publication in a care-listed journal, or it may be sometimes while you are writing the thesis, the very purpose may be to submit to the university for getting the degree awarded to you. So the intended purpose of the report also determines the type of report and its contents and form of presentation. The intention may be for evaluating the quality, or for taking some decisions by the management, and also you have to think about that also. Then the type of report, that also you have to plan before starting the writing. So with reference to the intended use, the type of report to be prepared should also be determined. When the research is undertaken to fulfill the requirements of a degree or diploma, the report is prepared in a comprehensive technical language. Otherwise, you have to, you never use that kind of a technical language. If it is a summary report, you have to prepare it in a journalistic language and so on. So the type of report you have to determine, and the scope of the report also need to be determined. The next step is to determine the scope of the contents with reference to the type of report and its intended use. And finally, your style of reporting also need to be determined. So then comes the preparation of report and presentation of the report. See, the preparation of the report and the presentation of the report. So I'm just trying to tell something about the thesis, the technical report. We are proceeding to the first type of report, the technical report or the thesis. See, the contents of a technical report or a thesis. It may be your thesis or a dissertation. Sometimes for the PG students, this format may be used for a preparation of your project report also. So a technical report has a number of clearly defined sections. The headings of the sections and their order may vary from one report to the another. But one of the suggested broad sequence of the contents of research report that is presented here, that normally have three major components. The first one is the preliminary items. The second part is the main part, that is the body of the report. And the third part is the terminal items. Now we will look into each one of it along with the points to be bear in mind while preparing the research report. See how we can prepare the research report. The first part is, of course, the preliminary items. The preliminary items. So the preliminary item itself consists of several pages, ranging from the title page to abstract or to the executive summary. Sometimes in certain universities it is known as executive summary, and normally we prepare it as abstract. So what are the preliminary items? What are the preliminary items? The first page is the title page. Normally in the thesis or project report, we prepare the title page in duplicate, because in the cover page as well as the very next page is prepared in a similar manner. So the title page, then comes the researcher's declaration, then comes the certificate of the research supervisor, acknowledgements, table of contents, list of tables, list of graphs and charts, abstract or synopsis, of which the first one is, of course, the title page. You can see a title page in the slide. So this is the first page of a research report. The title page is the first page of a research. See the title page. We can see several contents like title of the study, prepared for what purpose, what is the purpose behind preparation of this report, prepared by whom, name of the supervising teacher, presented to whom, time of submission. Everything is incorporated in the title page. You can see it in the slide itself. The title of the study, the purpose of the report, prepared by the candidate's name, then name of the supervising teacher is there, presented to which university, and the month and year of submission, everything is there. So it should give information regarding all these things. But we have to be very careful while writing the title. See, some of the basic points you have to bear in mind while writing the title page itself is. Earlier, there was a trend in stating that a study on. You can see in the previous slide, you saw the model title page. But in that itself, a study on accrual-based double entry system of accounting is there. But now the trend has been changed. There is no need of adding this kind of words like a study on, an evaluation of, an assessment, etc., along with the title of the study. So then a question may be in your mind, then why you have pointed out an example with that kind of a word in the title. So earlier there was a style to use all these things. That is why in this example also, even me, for my research scholar, we use the same type of title. But now the style is different. So it is not essential to state these words as part of your title, because the research itself is a detailed scientific study. What is the research? The research is a detailed scientific inquiry, a detailed scientific study, a detailed analysis, or a detailed evaluation. So there is no need to state these words with your title. So this is with regard to framing of your title. You need to consider some other aspects also while preparing and presenting the title of your report. See, in the next slide, we can see some more aspects regarding the title of your study. When you are preparing the title of your study, you have to be very careful while drafting the title of your study. It should be as specific as possible. Your title should be as specific as possible. That means you have to avoid general titles. If we put a title in a general perspective, then that title will not convey to the audience what the study is about. For example, I have an experience to work with the Kudumbasri mission in Kerala for 3.5 years as the district coordinator. And one of my scholar approached me a topic related with Kudumbashree. And the topic suggested by that particular candidate was, sir, why can't we study about the role of Kudumbashree mission in Kerala? So the title proposed by my candidate is a role of Kudumbashree mission in Kerala. If we post that kind of a title, role of Kudumbashree mission in Kerala, it will not convey any specific meaning as to what kind of roles you are going to assess, because Kudumbashree is playing multiple roles. It is intended basically for the economic empowerment, the social empowerment, and the political empowerment and all. We cannot be able to cover all these aspects in a single study. So it is not good to specify the title as a general title like this, the role of Kudumbashree mission in Kerala. Instead, if you can put the title more specifically as the role of Kudumbashree mission in economic empowerment of women in Kerala, then the title is okay. Then the title is okay, because it becomes more specific. One more thing that you have to bear in mind is that your title should always have a positive connection with your objectives. Normally, what is happening to most of the researchers nowadays is that the title will not have a connection with the objectives, because the objectives are set in tune with the analysis performed in the study. Nowadays, the analyst determines everything. That is not the right way, actually. So your title should reflect the objectives of the study. If you study the problems and prospects of seafood industry, the objectives should analyze both problems and future prospects of the industry. So the first objective should be to analyze the problems of the industry and to assess the future prospects of the industry like that. Then you can put the title as problems and prospects of industry. Then only that will reflect the very purpose of your study. So it is better that we need to spell out the relationship between the objectives as well as the title in a clear manner. And you need to spell out the relationship between variables also, if possible, the relationship between variables also in your title. See, in the first example I have pointed out regarding the role of Kudumbashree. If we put a title like this, role of Kudumbashree on the economic empowerment of women in Kerala, it reflects what we are going to study. Here, we are going to analyze the relationship between the activities of Kudumbashree mission on one side and the resultant economic empowerment on the other side. In that way, your title should state the expected relationship between variables also. Another aspect is the brevity of your title. It should be brief. Even though there is no hard and fast rule regarding the length of the title, it is better to limit the title of your study up to 15 words. Maximum 15 words is a good size for setting up of your title of your research report. Remember one thing, never use abbreviations in the title. Normally, we have a tendency, the researchers have a tendency to use abbreviations in the title. One of my scholars, when she submitted a proposal, she put MSME in her title, MSME. Okay, MSME is self-explanatory, but it is not good to state abbreviations in your title. Instead of stating it as MSMEs, you have to state it as micro, small, medium enterprises. So use the expanded form in your title instead of abbreviations. And the next step is about the formats for writing the title of your thesis. When you report your research report, you have to follow a specific format for writing the title itself. There are 3 different formats for writing the title. One is all caps. That means all letters in the title in the capital format itself. All letters in capital case itself. That's good because there may not be any errors in that case. But another type is the title case. The title case is one in which all the words begins with capital letter except the prepositions, articles, and conjunctions. We know the prepositions in, at, on, like that, and articles like a, and the conjunctions, the connecting words, and or etc. So these cannot be put in title, put in capital letters. All other words begins with capital letters. So in the title case, all words begins with capital letter except the prepositions, articles, and conjunctions. One more style is there, that is the semi-title case, under which the capital letter is used for the first letter and for the proper nouns, first letter of the proper nouns and the first letter of riders. Rider means if you have any colon or hyphen in your title, the very next word immediately after that particular thing is called a rider. So these are the three types of styles of presentation of the title. But we are commonly using either the all caps or title case style for presenting the title of the thesis. Hence, we can conclude that a good title should be set with the fewest possible words that should adequately describe the contents of the study. So the title should be very brief but self-explanatory about the purpose and the objectives of the inquiry. That's all about the title. See, in the previous slide, we discussed about the preliminary items. So the remaining parts, we discussed only the title page. The remaining parts of the preliminary section of a research report consists of researcher's declaration, in the case of the academic research conducted for fulfillment of the requirements of degree. It is required by the researcher to make a declaration that it is a bona fide work, it is a true work done by me under supervision of so and so, and no part of it is produced for getting any other degree or diploma from any other university. Like that, you have to declare that it is a bona fide work done by you. So that is researcher's declaration. The next one is research supervisor's certificate. The research supervisor has to certify that it was a record of independent research work done by the researcher or the student himself. So the supervisor certifies the same, and he acknowledges the same, and he permits you to submit the same to the university. That is research supervisor certificate. And the next page is acknowledgements. So in this section only, the researcher acknowledges the assistance and support received from different individuals or organizations like libraries and all in conducting the research. In case of research undertaken by a non-student researcher, acknowledgement may be made in the preface section itself, where a brief background of the study is also given. But in the case of our academic reports, we are normally preparing a special page for acknowledgements. Normally, there is a trend among the researchers to prepare 2-3 page acknowledgements, but it is better to place all your acknowledgements in one page itself. Okay, the next one is table of contents. Table of contents gives an outline of the contents of the entire report. It contains a list of chapters, their titles, subtitles with page numbers and all. It facilitates ready locations of topics in the report. You can easily refer a particular thing in the research report with the help of this content page or index page. Then the next one is a list of tables. This comes after the table of contents containing table numbers, title of the tables, and page numbers. Then the list of graphs and charts. After that, the executive summary or the abstract may be presented. Normally, in our university, it is attached with the not as a part of the thesis, but attached as a separate copy along with the application. But in certain universities in Tamil Nadu and all, when we get the reports for adjudication, we came to see that it is placed just before the body of the report itself. The research abstract is prepared in such a manner that it states the principal objectives of the study, scope of the study, describe the methodology, summarizes the result, state the principal conclusions and all. In that way, you have to prepare a short report. That is regarding the abstract. Okay. Then comes the second part, that is the body of the report. The body of the report. So after the preliminary part, the body of the report is presented. It is the major and main part of the report. It covers the formulation of the problem study, the methodology, the findings and discussions and summary of findings and recommendations and all. It will consist of several chapters. Number of chapters is based on the nature of the study as well as the number of objectives and all. So before proceeding into the various contents of the body parts, one thing you need to remember is that you should ensure a smooth flow of ideas from the beginning of the report till the end of the report. That is what is lacking in the reports prepared and presented by most of the researchers. So there should be a proper forward and backward integration of ideas in the report. There should be a proper connection from the background to the review, to the research gap, to the statement of the problem, to the objectives of the study, to the hypothesis, to the methodology, and to the data collection, data analysis. In that way, it should flow like a story only. So ensure a proper flow of reading. That should there should be a connection between sentences, the connection between ideas, everything you need to ensure. Then the first part of the body is the introduction chapter. The first chapter is normally the introduction chapter. It is devoted for introducing the theoretical background of the problem, its definitions, formulations, and all. The purpose of the introduction chapter should be to supply sufficient background information to allow the reader to understand and evaluate the results of the present study without needing to refer to the previous publications on the topic. Only through going through the introduction part, the audience will have to get a clear-cut idea about the background of this particular study. So while preparing the introduction chapter, you have to give proper citations that should support your arguments with the data. Sometimes you need to supplement data. Sometimes you need to cite the previous studies made and published by other persons. So that kind of citations and data support should be there. So the introduction chapter may consist of different sections like the theoretical background of the topic, the statement of the problem. So the theoretical background, the first task itself is to introduce the background and nature of the problem, so as to place into a larger context to enable the reader to know the significance in a proper perspective. So this section summarizes the theory of conceptual framework, that is the previous knowledge which is available regarding this particular area, the background of the study. Normally we used to say that you have to use a funneling approach while writing the background of the topic. That means from a global perspective to an Indian perspective to a local perspective. In that way, from a general thing to a specific thing, like that. You have to proceed the theoretical background of the topic. You have to prepare the theoretical background of the topic. Then comes the statement of the problem. So in this section, the why and how of a problem selected, that is to be stated here. The problem should be clearly defined with the supporting facts. That is essential. In this part, you can add your research questions that will lead to the development of the research objectives. So simply the statement of the research problem should be specific and clear with supporting information, and it would be followed by the research questions. These research questions later on turn to be your research objectives. So the statement of the problem should be clearly and concisely stated. It should be narrowed down to a research problem. It should be significant enough for a research inquiry. So after writing the research problem, you have to ask yourself whether it is clearly and concisely stated, whether it is narrowed down to a research problem, whether it is significant enough for a research inquiry. All these questions will give you more clarity about the research problem. And the next part is the review of literature. Sometimes in certain reports, this part is added as a separate chapter also. This you can add as a separate chapter also. So this is an important part of the body of the report. It is devoted for making a brief review of previous studies on the problem and significant writings on the topic under study. This review provides a summary of the current state of knowledge in the area of investigation, which aspects has been already investigated, what research gap exists, and how the present study is an attempt to fill the gap highlighted in the study. Thus, the underlying purpose of this review part is to locate the present research in the existing body of research on the subject and to point out what it is going to contribute to the subject. So the review part is very important. But nowadays, the researchers are not taking it in that seriousness. That is why the format of writing review, everything is different nowadays. And we know that the review helps the researcher for identification of variables, also development of hypothesis, preparation of the research design. For everything, the review is very important. So earlier, there was a style of presenting the entire review in a chronological order. Year-wise order, we presented the entire review. But it is essential to arrange the review and present the same in a thematic way. I will show you finally some examples how you can present the review in a thematic way. You can do two things. One, you need to do a review in a thematic way and a methodological way. And both, if you present both of these in your report, that will add more colors to your report. That will give that will convey the very purpose of your research as well as the modus operandi or the methodology used for conducting the research activity also. Okay, I will show you some examples later after finishing the presentation. Then comes the objectives of the study. The objectives of the study and investigative questions relating to each of the objectives need to be presented. I told you in the part of the statement of the problem itself, you can present your research questions, and the questions are to be stated as research objectives. And based on that research objectives, you need to prepare your hypothesis. The testable hypothesis need to be formulated and presented here. When you are preparing and presenting the hypothesis, you should be very careful that the hypothesis should be clear, hypothesis should be specific, hypothesis should be testable, and it should give a clear-cut association with the existing facts and also a proper link should also be established between the objectives and hypothesis. Nowadays, that also is a great problem when the students are appearing for pre-submission bios examination and all. We came to see that there is no connection between the objectives and hypothesis. It is because of the fact that everything is determined by the analyst, not by the researcher. So you need to internalize your research. That is what is needed actually. So these are the basic parts, of the first chapter that is continued here. The scope of the present study, you need to present the scope of the study, and the scope is normally limited in three respects, such as we limit the scope geographically, based on the population count and based on the generalizations to be made and all. So the dimensions of the study in terms of geographical area covered, the designation of the population being studied, and the level of the study are specified. That is the section called the scope of the study. It is limiting the study with respect to the time, the geographical area, the target group, with the proper justification for this. You have to limit the entire thing, but you have to give a proper justification for limiting the study in that respect. And you need to give a definition of certain concepts or operational definitions also. So the reader of a report is not equipped to understand the study unless he can know what concepts are used and how they are used in your study. Therefore, you have to give operational definition of the key concepts and variables of the study that you need to be presented. Give justification for the definitions used by you. Here also a common mistake committed by most of the researchers is that instead of giving the operational definition, some researchers, they used to give the general dictionary-based definitions itself. There exists a clear-cut difference between the general definition and the operational definition. Operational definition is the definition which is used in the research. So that is how you define a variable operationally. You can divide the variable into different dimensions, and each dimensions into different elements, and so on. And by combining all these things, you will be able to give an operational definition. So the operational definition breaks down the concept into observable and measurable behavior. That is what is called the elements. And after that, it groups them in different categories called the dimensions. And what all dimensions you are going to cover, what all elements you are going to study for studying a particular variable, that will give you an operational definition. So operational definition is not a dictionary definition. Please bear in mind that thing. In the methodology part, you have to state the design of the study. This part of the report is the presentation of all the aspects of the method and its implementation, like overall typology, the method of data collection, the sampling design, the data collection instruments, the method of data processing, data analysis. Everything is presented in this particular design part. So here the methodology is stated here. First thing is regarding the research design. In that part also, you have to be very careful that you have to state whether your study is designed as a descriptive study or an experimental study or an analytical study. Like that, you have to state the overall methodology. Then the methods used in the study, like survey method, everything, you have to state that also. After that, you have to state the sources of data, the sampling plan or the sampling method used, the justification, then the data collection instrument, the field work undertaken by you, the data processing and analysis plan, an overview of the entire report and limitations of the study. You have to state the limitations of the study also. In this limitation part also, I have to say something like that. Here you have to carefully state the limitations and weaknesses of the study. So that is needed to enable the researcher or enable the reader to judge the validity of the conclusions and the general worth of the study in proper perspectives. When you are stating the limitations, please bear in mind that the limitations of the study is intended here, not the limitations of the researcher. Sometimes the researchers are showing a tendency to show some limitations they faced during the course of the research. That is their limitations. But if it is something related positively with the study, then only you have to state it as part of your study. Then comes the theoretical framework chapter. The theoretical framework chapter, as I said earlier, nowadays this chapter is to be prepared with a clear-cut theoretical review. It should be the outcome of a review of literature part. Earlier there was a trend to describe everything as a theoretical framework, detaching something from available books, journals, and all. But here we have to state the theoretical progression of the concepts under the study with the help of the previous studies. So here you have to state the relation with the research problem, define all concepts and variables theoretically, relationship between concepts and variables identified. I told you about the methodological review also. And the conceptual model of the research, everything should be there in the theoretical framework chapter. That is the second chapter. And before proceeding to the analysis chapter, I have to say something about the body part also. The body part. While writing the body part, you should be very careful. So when you write the body part, it is not safe to use the words like I or we. Instead, you can use the word researcher or researchers in research report. It is not good to state I or we in your research report. And better to write the research hypothesis in the first chapter itself. better to state the research hypothesis in the first chapter, because you are going to prove your research hypothesis. Normally, we use after a thorough review process, it is better to state your research hypothesis as part of the first chapter. And when you state the hypothesis, you have to bear in mind one more thing. Normally, there is a tendency among the researchers to state all the hypotheses which were tested as part of the research study in the first chapter itself. There is no need to state all the hypotheses based on each and every objective. If there are 3 objectives, there will be 3 major research hypotheses. You just state that major 3 research hypotheses alone in the first chapter, and you can state all other hypotheses in the analysis chapter. There is nothing wrong in it, and state only the major hypothesis. Therefore, you state only the major hypothesis based on your research objectives, and prepare and present a thematic review of literature. I have already stated that. So you need to include all relevant works, and if possible, all latest works in your research review part. And be aware of the APA 7 guidelines, because in commerce and management, we used to follow the APA 7 guidelines instead of MLA style. So APA 7 is published, and in this presentation also, I share the presentation with the college authorities. And in this presentation also, in 2 slides, I have attached all the relevant guidelines, APA 7 guidelines. And you have to use in-text citations while giving in-text citation. How you have to state that in-text citation? If there is only one author, author's name, comma, year in brackets. If there are 2 authors, first author's last name and second author's last name, comma, year. These are all the things which are stated in the APA 7 guidelines. So you have to go into the APA 7 guidelines. So, and I'm not going to the details of all these things here. Here also the guidelines for giving in-text citations are there. If there are more than 2 authors, second name of the first author, then et al, comma, year. That is the way in which we are giving in-text citation. And if there are organizations like Government of India, the full name of the first name, and then give in bracket the abbreviations, then put a comma and year. That is the way in which we used to cite the organizations instead of giving GOI in brackets. First, you have to state Government of India in full, and you have to put GOI in brackets, then close the bracket, put a comma and year, full stop. This is the way in which we have to give a cite the organizations. And if there are 2 authors only, you can state both the name of both the authors, first author, then put a comma, you separate it with a semicolon, and then the second author, then put a comma, and here is there. And authors with the same last name, then only the first initial should appear there. If there are 2 Bijus in our department, there are 2 Bijus, then therefore we put B. Then my second name is Terence, therefore the second name is there. In that way, you can state more than 2 authors, and organization as an author, more than 2 cited at the same time. Everything is there. And the next slide also, I think that kind of certain guidelines are given. You just go through all these things. Then regarding the analysis part, see, this is the main part of your body. Here you are presenting the hypothesis, testing, the interpretation, finding answers to research objectives. So there is no need to give the detailed description of all the standard calculations and all. But you have to subdivide the chapters based on your objective. It's better to present your analysis chapter based on the objectives. And while writing your analysis, for the student's point of view, I'm just stating this, while writing your analysis, it is not good to write like above the table, below the table and all. You have to avoid that. Instead, table 4.1 shows that. That is the style we are using to explain or giving a description of the things which I have stated in the table. And it is not good to eat the table entirely. That means we are presenting the table as it is. After that, one paragraph simply for explaining all the things which are there in the table. It is not good. So you just give the relevant parts, relevant aspects, the major findings from that only you need to describe after each and every table. And normally the size of chapter heads, the uniformity in presentation of chapter heads, these are all simple things actually, but some problems which occur while preparing the research report among the researchers. That is why I'm stating all these things. The first chapter title is presented in all caps, like introduction. Then the second chapter title is presented in title case. That is the first letter only in capital letter. That is not good. If you follow a particular style, you just follow that style itself in the entire report. Therefore, while writing the analysis also, you have to state you have to bear in mind certain important aspects. With that, we will conclude the first session and enter into the report writing part. So while reporting the numbers under 10, if a digit under 10 you need to be reported, spell it out and state it in words itself. It is not good in stating it in figure. If it is 9, you just write in the text as NINE itself. Spell it out and state it in words and numerals. 10 or above can be stated as numerals as it is. The numbers 10 and above can be used as numerals itself. And it is not good to use the symbol of percentage in text writing. Instead, you have to write a percent in words itself. And normally there is a
speaker of
hello, any problem?
Yes, sir.
Any problem, sir? Hello, sir.
No.
Can you hear me?
Sir, no problem.
No problem. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Normally there is a tendency among the researchers that they used to write as null hypothesis is failed to null hypothesis is accepted. Instead, null hypothesis is accepted, you have to state it as null hypothesis is failed to reject, because our basic intention itself is to reject the null hypothesis. So the good style is to write that a null hypothesis failed to reject, and not to write the statistical results alone. Give your research results. Normally in the findings part, the researchers are giving the statistical results alone. That is not what is expected from the researcher. You have to give your own research results with the help of the statistical data, and try to place your table in a single page without splitting the same in 2 pages and all. And while writing the interpretation of the table, be careful that not to explain table as it is. I just now pointed out it as eating the table and all. So be careful while using the figures, graphs, and diagrams. And all the table titles and table numbers should be placed above the title, and figure number and figure title are placed below the table. These are the styles. These are the things you have to bear in mind while writing the research report. And this is the last part. The last part is the results, findings, and discussions. Here, below, this part consists of major findings, conclusions, recommendations, and the area of future research also. So I'm concluding the first part. So while writing the findings and recommendations part, you have to give your findings based on your objectives. Almost all the researchers are facing a question during the open defense examination or pre-submission YOC examinations and all. What is your major finding? What's your objective? And what finding is based on that particular objective? So better you have to state the objective number 1 and its findings, objective number 2 and its findings. So give your findings based on your objectives and connect your findings with the existing theory or literature, because you have already made an extensive literature review. So connect your existing findings with the existing theory, and if it contradicts with the existing theory, that also needs to be pointed out well. Give your interpretations in a clear manner. Give your suggestions. That should be based on your findings. You are not expected to give suggestions for all aspects related with the problems. What all aspects you studied, what all aspects you find out from the research, based on that only you are expected to give practical suggestions. Your suggestions need not be general. So you give specific recommendations. You give specific recommendations that should be practical also. Better to give recommendations in such a manner that who is expected to implement the same. You have to fix that responsibility also. State your suggestions as an action plan itself. So have a final reading and do the proof correction and all. So there we are usually insisting a backward reading and forward reading again and again, because a thing which we have prepared will give an automatic confidence, and normally what happened is we normally does not locate the common faults that may occur. So while drafting the research report, you should be very careful about the tense to be used for reporting each and every session of your research report. By communicating your research report, your abstract should be presented in past tense, but your introduction should be in present tense, your review again in past tense, your methodology in past tense, your results in past tense, but your discussions, your conclusions, that should be stated in present tense. That also need to be presented. And regarding the last part of the technical session, that is the terminal items. The terminal items may consist of appendix. We know that we append certain aspects with the report because we have no scope for including it as part of the body of report. These are normally the copies of data collection instruments, the technical details on sampling plan, complex tables, glossary of new terms used in the report, the bibliography. These are all the things we used to state in the appendix part. In the appendix part, the copies of the data collection instruments, technical details, complex tables, and all are included, and the bibliography will give you a clear picture about the references you have made. So you have to ensure that no references missed in the bibliography. All you have to go through the APA 7 the manual before entering into the task of reporting. So we get some introductory idea about the report preparation. These are the slides I just pointed out to you, that this is about the APA 7 guidelines, latest APA 7 guidelines, that you just look into it. And I'm just proceeding into the second part. We will have a quick look on this particular aspect within the next 10 minutes. Is that okay, sir? Shall I proceed with the next 10 minutes? Hello, sir.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So this is regarding the structure of the research article. We know that normally a research article comprises of certain sections like this. A standard article's structure will be like this. There should be an abstract. And there should be an introduction part. Then a review of literature part should be there, and research methods, results, discussion, conclusion, and references. You have to be very careful in preparing all these things, because every journal is having their own patterns or prescribed structure for preparation of all these things. The first part, abstract. When you are preparing the abstract, you should bear in mind certain functions performed by this abstract, because this abstract is acting as a planning tool written before the paper. Normally, what is happening is after writing the entire paper, we are trying to write the abstract, but actually the abstract is a planning tool written before the paper, because we plan the structure, everything is planned, and based on that only we are preparing the paper. That is the concept. And it is a synopsis for the research article. Normally, the entire article is getting reflected in the abstract itself. So within 100 words limit, we are trying to reflect the entire article. And it is acting as a preview preceding the paper in a journal. Normally, we know that nobody is going to read the entire article first. They will read the abstract alone. So it is a preview preceding a paper in a journal, and it acts as an application for place in a conference. If you submit an abstract to the conference, they will go through the abstract, and that this abstract will determine the quality of the paper you are going to present there. Therefore, you have to be very careful in preparing the abstract. While preparing the abstract, what all things you have to be checked? The abstract should have an orientation. That means locating the research study within its field in the wider context. I'll show you one particular article, and then you will understand it. Because all the research reports, whether it is an article or thesis, whatever it may be, it is related with a broad area. You have to locate your research study within that broad area. So first, you should give an orientation, locate the research study within its field or wider context. Then you have to state the rationale, that is creating a niche for the research. Then you have to state the aim. So providing an aim or purpose of the research. Why this paper? Why this paper? What is the purpose of my inquiry? That you have to state exactly in the abstract. And outline the research methodology or theoretical framework. Then you have to outline the research findings. Then you have to give the general significance of the research findings as an interpretation. These are the things you have to incorporate in your abstract. After the abstract, you proceed to the introduction. It leads the reader from a general subject area to a specific field of research. That is why I have already pointed out that you have to proceed through a funneling approach from general to specific. Leads a reader from a general subject area to a specific field of research. It establishes the context and significance of research. It summarizes the current understanding and background information about the topic. In your introduction part itself, you have to give all these things. You start from the general thing and narrow down it to a specific area of research, establish the context and significance of your research, summarize the current understanding and background information about the topic, state the purpose of the work in the form of the research problem supported by hypothesis or set of questions, highlight the potential outcome your study can reveal. Everything should be reflected in your introduction also. So while drafting the introduction, the opening paragraph of your paper will have to provide your readers with their initial impression about the logic of your arrangement. If the opening paragraph is not that much interested, there itself you will lose the relevance of your paper. So in that opening paragraph, while preparing the opening paragraph, you have to ensure that you are providing an initial impression about the logic of your argument, your writing style, your overall quality of research, the validity of your findings and conclusions. So a concise, engaging, and well-written introduction will lead your readers to think highly of your analytical skills, your writing style, and your research approach. So be careful about writing your introduction. So abstract is very important. Then you proceed to the introduction. Introduction also is very important, especially the opening paragraph is very important. And after writing the opening paragraph, you have to be careful about certain aspects while preparing the introduction. How to prepare? how to prepare the introduction. You have to establish a territory, you have to establish a niche or the rationale of your study. So claiming the significance, so showing the general research area is important, the central. So if you are going to study something that is related to a specific area, you have to state that that area itself is very relevant. So that general research area is important, central, interesting, relevant. In that way, you have to claim the significance. And in that introduction also, you have to state the prominent literature. This is not the review part. Actually, in the research article itself, we will prepare another part called a literature review part. But in addition to that, in the introduction part itself, the prominent works are to be introduced there, introducing and reviewing items of previous research in the area. By that, we are establishing a territory. After establishing a territory, we have to give a rationale by justifying our research topic, by indicating the research gap, by raising some questions, and in what way this particular research will enhance the knowledge, extend the knowledge, or it will help in widening the horizons of knowledge. So justifying the research paradigm depending upon the choice and the approach, theoretical framework and all. After that, that niche to be occupied. For that, you have to state the aims and scope of the current research, outline the purpose, the methodology, stating the parameters and all. After that, give the definitions, the operational definitions of the key terms, outline and indicate the structure of the research article. This is about the introduction part. Then comes the third part. So the abstract part is over, the introduction part is over. Then comes the literature review part. As you know, the review is the survey of textbooks, scholarly articles, and any other sources relevant to a particular issue. It presents an area of research or theory. And this part provides a description, summary, and critical evaluation of the works related with the research problem being investigated. Therefore, the literature review are designed to provide an overview of the sources you have explored while researching on a particular topic. This is to demonstrate to your readers how your research fits within a larger field of study. In that way, you have to prepare your literature review. So it may consist of a simple summary of key sources. In social sciences, literature review usually has an organizational pattern and combines both summary and synthesis, often within a specific conceptual categories. We can divide it into various categories and all. That depends upon the nature of the issue we are approaching there. Place each work in the context of its contributions to understanding the research problem being studied. Reveal any gaps that exist in the field of literature, and locate your own research in the context of existing literature. This is the very purpose behind every literature review activity. You have to locate your particular research in the existing field of literature. Regarding the structure of the literature review part, there should be an overview of the subject, issue, or the theory under consideration, and division of works under review into different themes or categories if possible, and an explanation of how each work is similar to and how it differs from others, and a conclusion on which pieces are best considered in their argument and are most convincing of their opinions and make the greatest contribution to the understanding and development of their research area. Then only that will give a clear-cut idea about the theoretical knowledge which is existing regarding the area which we are going to research. Then the third part is methodology. It introduces the overall methodological approach for investigating your research problem. Whether your study is a qualitative one or a quantitative one or a mixed methodology, what you are going to adopt in your particular study. Describe the specific methods of data collection you are going to use, whether it is survey or experimental research, and how you analyze your research, what all statistical techniques you have used. Do you use specific theoretical perspectives to help you to analyze a text in the case of qualitative research and all. These things you have to be stated in your methodology, and your methodology should give background and rationale for the methodologies that are unfamiliar for your readers. are using a new methodology, that you have to be elaborated well, because then only the researchers understand the methodology you use, and it will provide a justification for subject selection and sampling procedure and all. Then here also you have to follow a sequential pattern by giving an orientation, locating the methods within an overall approach to the research, and a rationale or a significance arguing the choice of your method, and description providing details of the subjects and data and procedure, etc. Then we are proceeding to the result section, the result section. It provides the data that are critical to answering the research questions. We have certain research questions initially. Which data are critical to answer the research question, that are presented in the result section. So regarding the contents of the result section, an introductory context of understanding the results by restating the research problem underpinning your study, a summary of your key findings that need to be arranged in a logical sequence, and sometimes you need to include some non-textual elements also. It is a systematic description of your results, highlighting your reader, your observations, your relevant observations and all. Then comes the important part, that is discussion. The section is often considered most important part of your research paper, because this is where you most effectively demonstrate your ability as a researcher. While writing the discussion part, you need to think critically about an issue. It helps to develop creative solution to problems based upon logical synthesis. This is a more profound understanding of the research problem under investigation. So here you have to state the important aspects and your interpretations along with this thing, and you have to be very careful in giving the organization of the structure. As I said, I will share the PPT with your organizers, and that will be helpful for you. And finally, a well-written conclusion should also be there in your presentation. This conclusion is the last word on the issue you raised in your paper. Summarize your thoughts and conveying the larger significance of your study, demonstrating the importance of your idea, and introducing the possible new or expanded ways of thinking about the research problem. So while writing the conclusion also, you have to follow some general rules while writing the conclusion as well as discussions. And these are the common mistakes which the researchers may commit while writing the research report. In certain research research articles, the research question may not be specifically mentioned, and the aim is not specified with clarity. It should be specific, clear, and clarified. The structure of the paper should be in a proper manner. It should be described. It should be in a proper sequential order. It should be structured in a proper sequential order, and it should be in accordance with the structure which is specified in the website of the particular journal in which you are going to submit your manuscript. So therefore, the manuscript should have to follow the journal's instructions for others, and the paper does not exceed the maximum number of word limit. All the standard journals has the word limit for preparing the articles and all. You have to go through that. Even in certain journals, in Web Science and all, they are specifying limits for even for abstract, everything. They are limiting the word limit. And the introduction is an extensive review of literature. That is not good, because review of literature part is there. As I mentioned, the introduction part should incorporate only the most relevant works. You have to cite it, only the most relevant works, and the methods and interventions and instruments are not described in sufficient detail. So the methodology should be clearly stated. Results are reported selectively. So you are not expected to give the selective results. You are expecting results of the findings. Results appear both in a table and in a text. So that is not as expected from you. you are not explain the entire table, and detailed tables are provided for results that do not relate to the main research questions. Give only the relevant tables. That relevancy of the table is determined with the help of the research questions. The introduction, the discussion, key arguments are not backed up by appropriate reference. So give proper citations to all your data. Then most or all references are out of date. So include all the latest references. Discussions does not provide an answer to the research questions. So ensure that your research questions are properly answered, and discussions overstate the implications of results and does not acknowledge the limitations of the study. You are not expected to give your findings alone. You have to give the limitations of the study also. And another possible thing is the language part. So ensure that it is written in proper language also. So I don't know whether I'm able to convey the things in a proper manner, because I'm trying to rush into all these things. I just need to do justice to what I committed to Dr. Biju John. That's why I included this report part also. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Georgie, sir. Thank you for your.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much, sir, for giving a wonderful presentation. In fact, this was very elaborative, and if you say we need 2-3 days to actually convey this information to research scholars. But you have wonderfully concised everything and pointed out the important points, like the research report, starting from the importance of the research report, the purpose of the research report, and the presentations. So the types you have clearly mentioned about the types of the research reports. And while discussing about the stages in the preparation of the research report, you have in detail mentioned about the planning, how first of all how to identify the audience, and all those details were clearly mentioned. And I think this was a very useful session for our research scholars, especially those who have started their work. I think this is a very good guideline that we have given. So now I would request if any participants have any doubts or any questions to be clarified, we can take at least 2 questions. I think, Biju sir, can we take 2 questions?
Yes, sir. Yes, sure.
Yes. So open to the audience. There is one question from Mosina.
There's a question in chat box.
Mosina is asking, sir, if there is a single criteria for deciding whether a project is a best one or bad one, what other criteria would be?
Actually, regarding the criteria, especially regarding the article, I have stated some factors which are the mistakes normally committed by the researchers. These are prepared in the point of view of a reviewer. In the point of view of a reviewer, we can find this kind of issues or problems. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear.
Okay, I think my screen is having some problem. Okay, so normally, when you look into these criteria, you will get a suitable framework in your mind regarding the regarding fixation of the quality of a particular project or a quality of a particular research work. So there should be a clear or clear-cut or clearly prepared abstract. That is the first thing. And you have to state the background, everything specifically by placing the relevance of your research project in the introductory part itself. You have to place that is what I mentioned about the niche. The niche part is very important. And you have to state the methodological aspects also in a detail. So all these things are very important. So I suggest that you just go to the last two slides. That will give you a clear-cut idea about the criteria which are used normally by reviewers as well as the adjudicators for evaluating the quality of a particular project or a research article or a research thesis, whatever it may be. Yes.
I think that answered for Mosina. Now, I will take one more question. That is from Sheena Joseph. The question is, sir, how can you demonstrate that your research solution is a good one?
Yeah, that's a good question actually. That is what is expected from you, because the practical implication of your research result is very important, because we are all exploring the social issues. When we find a particular solution for a social problem, we have to be confident that it should help the society to resolve that particular issue. And you, the researcher, as an experienced person, you have to state the exact ways and means. That is why I suggested that while giving recommendation, you have to give it based on your findings and its practical implications, and if possible, fix the responsibilities of each and every person. The recommendation for the government, the recommendation for the banking institutions, the recommendation for the local self-government institutions, the recommendation for the academic institutions, and how you are going to evaluate the implementation of the result. That also, if possible, that also need to be mentioned. That is the way in which you can ensure the implications of the findings of your study. If possible, you just state that also in the research report, recommendations and implications. If that also is there, that's very nice.
Okay, that's all. Because of the lack of time, I would not ask. I would not take other questions. Anyway, I think your email ID and mobile number is available for the audience, and if there is any doubts or clarifications, I hope they can contact you, and you'll be able to clear those doubts. So with that, I would like to close this. Before closing, I just request Biju sir to just give the words. Thank you. Biju John sir, over to you.
Yes. So during this session, Dr. Biju T has demonstrated in a simple and a concise manner how a presentation can be made in the case of research methodology and the preparation of a report and how to present it as an article. And particularly, he concentrated on the essential topics and how it should be, and the all other things related with the process of research. So, on behalf of the Department of Commerce, I express our sincere gratitude to Dr. Biju T. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And of course, our faculty member, Professor Dilna Jolly, is waiting for the official vote of thanks. Myself as head of the department, I am expressing my sincere thanks to you, sir, and also Dr. Joji Chandran, the professor of the Christ University, who very well accepted our invitation to chair this session as well. So thank you, both of you, and we will be in touch in the future years to come. and I hope that you would be associating with in our academic endeavors. Thank you once again. Over to Professor Gilnan John for the formal vote of thanks.
Respected Chair, Dr. Jogi Chandran, Professor and Head, Department of Commerce, Christ University. Respected Resource Person of the Day, Dr. Biju T, Associate Professor, Department of Commerce, University of Kerala. Principal, Reverend Dr. Martin K, Dean and Head of the Department, Dr. Biju John M. Most respected Vice Principals, Coordinator of Fincon 2022, Dr. Divya George, Organizing Secretary, Professor Sindhu George, my dear teachers, scholars, and students from various colleges. A very good afternoon to one and all present here. Thank you is such a prayer that cannot be seen or touched. It must be felt by heart. I feel honored and privileged to get the opportunity to propose a word of thanks with the first technical session on the second day of the International Virtual Conference Fincon 2022, organized by the Research Department of Commerce, St. Thomas College Autonomous Thrissur, entitled The Research Communique. With utmost respect, I would like to thank Dr. Jogi Chandran, Professor and Head, Department of Commerce, Christ University, for chairing the session in spite of his busy schedule. Your comments and add-ons are very well appreciated. Thank you very much, sir. For the last few hours, we have been listening to a topic of great significance in our academic life, the research communique. As we have experienced in modest language, our resource person explained the topic very well. Sir, you gave us an insight into the kinds of research reports, how efficiently we can draft the research thesis and research articles for publication, focusing on starting to end. The resource person mentioned about the relevance of 3 Ps: planning, preparing, and presenting the report in an appealing, convincing, and informative manner. In order to make our research work's contribution vital for the academic community as well as the society we belong to, we should aim at avoiding mistakes too. That has also been covered by Dr. Biju T. On my own behalf and on behalf of St. Thomas College Autonomous Thrissur, I extend a very hearty vote of thanks to our resource person of the day, Dr. Biju T, for gracing your important work and sharing with us your findings and opinions today. Thank you very much, sir. On behalf of the Research Department of Commerce, I extend very hearty gratitude to our principal, Reverend Dr. Martin K, for supporting us in organizing such a grand international conference, Fincon 2022. And I'm sure it's the heart and hands of Dr. Biju John M, Dean and Head of Commerce, which made this international conference a reality. So I specifically thank Dr. Biju John M, who have been the backbone of the conference. Thank you very much, sir. I must mention our profound sense of appreciation to our vice principals as well as the coordinator and organizing secretary. I profoundly thank our MC of the day, Ms. Pallavi Muralidharan, for her immensely superb anchoring. I also take this opportunity to thank the entire technical team of our college for rendering the valuable time and helping improve the quality of the session. Finally, I thank all the participants, scholars, faculty members, and students from various institutions for their wholehearted support, participation, and interaction. Once again, thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you once again. Okay. Meet again. Happy to meet again, sir.
Sure, it's very happy, sir.
Thank you, Joji,
Once
sir.
again, Joji, sir,
Right.
thank you for your valuable comments and all. Thank you.
Right.
With that, we come to the end of the session. For the kind attention of all the participants, we'll be resuming with the third technical session.